Oh, I love that question, actually. So, dialogue. Descriptions, typically, brevity is your friend. You know, it was a dark, stormy night. Not it was a dark, stormy night, and the leaves breezed in the wind on October 10th of I've already fallen asleep. So instead of just info dumping on your reader and trying to do a description of them going into, say, a metropolis, and you describe every little building and, you know, trying to paint a whole picture, which, by the way, is very wordy. Try, you know, like, as Sabrina went over the cliff, she stumbled onto an alien metropolis. Shit, she said. This looks like New York on steroids. Another good technique, especially if you're a fantasy writer, is magic systems. So you tend to, newer authors anyway, try and explain the magic system all at once, and it's just like this huge info dump thing. One of the best ways to get around that is to just write kid characters. It makes sense that they'd be asking questions, and you can have chapter 1 be lesson 1. Then chapter 3 or 4, after some stuff happens, they learn more about the magic, and so on and so forth. The most important thing, I think, with showing and not telling is to be short in your descriptions, not try and do everything all at once and explain it all, but rather to introduce a question at the beginning and end of every chapter. Now, your so-called question can take 2 chapters to answer, but you sort of get the point. You want to keep the pace of the story going and the reader turning the page, not being overloaded with a wealth of information that they have to think about. Because a big mistake authors make is because they know their story so intimately, they assume other people do too. But basically, from the research that I've done into this topic, humans, or people in general, tend to have about a 2 to 3 page attention span. So you got to make sure in that time frame to keep them reading, something major happens to reignite their attention. Few instances where showing is better than telling. Tolkien was famous for that, so is Stephen King. But I also wouldn't worry about it too much because so many people tell you all the rules. It's your book, write it the way you want it. And if it flows well and you think it sounds good, other people think it sounds good, and you have a page-long info dump, that's fine. Especially if it's in the beginning of a book or something, it's, you know, whatever. But there are ways you can keep it short and sweet, and that's fine. But for the most part, I would suggest brushing up on dialogue because it makes things flow so much better, and it's an easier way to introduce new concepts.